Hello, my name is Anna Cook, and this is my Module 14 case study for EDL 853. When evaluating the case study, some facts. Miguel was a student who was injured in a varsity football game. In the football game, he was paralyzed from the waist down. Nobody is being held responsible. There were liability waivers from students, and it was clearly an accident during routine play. Miguel returned to school. He was removed from his biology class. This was an issue because there was no notification of the change to student and parent other than an impromptu meeting between the counselor, Ms. Gussman, and Miguel. He really preferred that biology course as it was relevant to his post-secondary education goals. And the only reason that he was removed from the class was because of the lack of wheelchair access in the classroom. There was legal action that was mentioned in the case study. Miguel's parents requested a meeting with the principal. And at that meeting, an attorney on behalf of Miguel arrived and cited Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and he cited FAPE. Getting the facts of who is involved, there's a superintendent that we need to reference, the principal, who I am acting as, student, Miguel Hernandez, student's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez. The counselor was Ms. Gussman, and the attorney who was hired by the Hernandez family. When evaluating the legal and ethical issues in this case study, the three major acts that came to mind were the federal acts IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and what was specifically mentioned, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. These federal documents all mandate wheelchair accessibility. Miguel does have the right to be enrolled in his class, the class that he preferred. Kind of summarizing, the school did not provide accommodations for Miguel. Legal action was initiated by Miguel's parents. Appropriate changes that they could have made would have been bringing the building up to code. It was an older 1950s building. They could have accommodated Miguel by providing wheelchair access. That could be a ramp, an elevator. It could also be changing the learning environment, getting creative and finding answers rather than just removing him. Synthesizing exactly what happened, the school did not provide accommodations for Miguel. They fell very short in that regard, and legal action was taken. Dissecting this a bit further, Section 4, synthesizing the facts. Focusing on the people involved in the case study, we have Miguel. He was a student enrolled in a biology course that was relevant to his post-secondary goals. It was only after this football injury that he was enrolled in another science class that was wheelchair accessible. Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez did not pursue legal action regarding injury and liability after the incident. They met with Ms. Gussman, the counselor, which is created a timeline of Miguel returning back to school regularly. They arranged a meeting with the principal and brought the attorney because of the issue with enrollment in the new class. Ms. Gussman was the counselor who met with the parents and encouraged Miguel to come back to school on the specified timeline. However, Ms. Gussman also had a private meeting with Miguel with no advance warning regarding the change in enrollment. The place that this took place. Section 4, synthesizing the facts, place Nottingham High School. So this was really regarding the high school not being up to code. The case study refers to it as a 1950s building. It is not guaranteed that every classroom is wheelchair accessible. And we know that the programs mentioned specifically was this signature biology class that Miguel had particular interest in. I thought it was important to highlight what we did not know at this point. The case study does not provide details on the financial situation of the building and district and what was applied for already to accommodate Miguel. We do not know the special education department presence at the school building or at the district level and their involvement. We do not know other resources that were provided or offered to Miguel. And we do not know the input from the district level regarding the incident. Monitoring protocol. I currently work in a very large school district, and I know that whenever a student applies for or has recently received services, that there's always a district personnel following up, making sure that the building is meeting the accommodations. So it just naturally raises a question with this. Section 5, reviewing and prioritizing the information. I think that the stakeholders that I'm listing here are typical of a school environment, and I think that's great about a school is that there's a ripple effect that happens, whether it's positive or negative. We're such an intertwined, connected family, and so it's important to understand how all of these factors do affect each other. So main stakeholder are the student, Miguel. Miguel specifically, but also this regards the student body. Student families, specifically Miguel's parents, but student families are often connected. Other students that have disabilities, whether they have had disabilities for years and years, whether they have also recently acquired a disability. Other students with disabilities will look at this and identify. A school community, okay, so that could be staff, faculty, many different roles that contribute to a school community. The athletic community is its own kind of world. They have a different dynamic full of support with each other. The SPED and counseling department. So those are the stakeholders that I've identified in the school environment. I still believe that there are enough unknowns in this case, if I refer back to my previous slide, that I need more information. I would like legal counsel and district guidance to make a decision moving forward. So at this point, I could not make a decision moving forward. Options. So weighing the different options in this case, if I were the principal. No action could be taken. This would mean I made no accommodations at the building level. We continued on with the case study as it left off. I believe that this would bring upon us legal action from Miguel's parents' lawyers. I believe it would have a significant negative impact on the community. And we could also lose the potential funding that could be used to make the accommodations. We would not even be showing an effort, and that would not be well received by the community, staff. There is the potential to move the science class. Moving the science class into another building or another classroom that's available. This could prove difficult because of scheduling conflicts. It would appropriately accommodate Miguel, as it would be wheelchair accessible, and it would keep Miguel enrolled in his desired class. Third option, make the accommodations. whether that's building a ramp, installing some wheelchair accessible mechanism. That does create a district and building financial commitment. It would legally and ethically fulfill our situation. Miguel would be able to stay in his desired class. And finally, a district or a virtual class. So sometimes in our current district, we have certain classes that are signature to buildings, and they've been relocated to our district building, which is more centrally located, or students can Skype in and take a virtual class if they're taking a signature language. It's not an ideal educational experience. It does depend on the needs of the class. Since it is biology, I'm not sure what physical, if they're going to be dissecting, if they need access to sinks. It depends on the physical requirements of the class. This does not meet the accommodations of Miguel at the building level. Legal action could still be taken because we ultimately did not give Miguel accommodation. Well, after evaluating these options, taking no action is truly the last option, and I hate even having it as an option. The legal action that would be taken would be kind of a nail in the door regarding the lack of willingness to accommodate. It would be public. It would have a negative impact on the community. Moving the science class to a different classroom is a very good potential option. It kind of has dependency on the third option. So my preferred option would be to make the accommodations. We would then be checking off all of our boxes. We would be bringing our building up to code, legally and ethically fulfilling the situation and our obligations, and Miguel would be able to stay in his desired class. However, depending on just how long we have to go to get up to code, we might need to temporarily move the class, which would be number 2. But at least making sure that Miguel could stay enrolled, we are accommodating with a wheelchair, and getting creative, whether that means switching with a current class, seeing what the class's needs are. I think that there are some creative options that we could find there to advocate for Miguel. And again, not a preferred option, but a potential option is to have a district or virtual class. Miguel could stay enrolled, but it's not the ideal educational experience. It doesn't really get our building up to code. It's just kind of deferring the issue. Legal action could still be taken against our building and our choices. So yeah, I think I already jumped the gun on this one. I prefer a kind of a hybrid of making the accommodations to our building level, and depending on a timeline, depending on the financial obligation of that, we might need to move the science class into a room that meets the needs. But the ultimate goal is making sure that Miguel is accommodated and Miguel is enrolled in his desired class. I believe many people would be paying attention to how this is handled. The stakeholders, Miguel, all of the student body, student families, Miguel's parents, other students with the disabilities would be seeing how this was handled, school community, athletic community, and also to the special education and counseling department on how the situation was handled. Implementing my plan of action, I would meet with the district, specifically getting the support of the superintendent, district attorney, and special education department. I would explore the options and propose the plan, making accommodations to the current classroom, equitable use of educational resources and opportunities. If needed, temporarily move the class to be accessible. Once the district plan is complete, I would meet with all parties, Miguel, parents, their attorney, and the district personnel. I would notify the counselor of the decision and create the building plan to train staff on all accommodations that apply to more than just Miguel, setting a precedent. I would initiate an IEP, and I would do an evaluation and follow up. Did I advocate for the equitable access, and did I serve Miguel well?